No, 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 no. Okay. Uh, just yeah, hold on 1 minute. Just hold on 1 minute. I need to get with my glass. Yeah.
Dạ mọi người chờ một xíu ạ, thầy đang đi lấy kính. À, please wait one more minute. Van is searching for his glass.
Okay. No. Namo Namo Buddhaya Namo Sangaya Namo Gurudeva Namo Buddhaya Namo Dhammaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Gurudeva Namo Buddhaya Namo Dhammaya Namo Sanghaya Sangye Jada Zoye Chanam Chanjo Bado Dani Kya So Che Da Ye Jin So Ye Ba Di Da Ki Do La Benje Sangye Nu Ba Sho Semje Tamje Deva Da Deve Yuda Dempa Yoji Semje Tamje Dunye Da Dunye Ki Yuda Deva Yoji Semje Tamje Dunye Mebe Deva Da Mende wa yu ji semje tamje nyere chada nyeta de panyon la ne wa yu ji. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So, we will continue with 7 limb practices. Of 7 limb practices, we have already done the prostration, which is the first one. The second one is making offering, which we have also been done. Now we are dealing with the confession, or what is called as purification practice. So that again is something really, really important for the beginner, both for the beginner, the intermediate practitioner, and also the advanced practitioner. This purification practice of confession is highly, highly necessary. Not only in spiritual life, but also in one's, normal life or mundane life. One of the unique quality of the confession and the purification practice is that if we make the, purification practice, if we engage in purification practice, if we committed to purification practice, no matter what, how much the negativities and the negative actions or the negative karma that we have created in this life, as well as since the beginningless lifetimes, all these purifications can be purified. All these negativities or negative karma can be totally purified. It is like, in a farmland. It's like farmland. You are expecting a good harvest, so you sown the seed. You sown the seed. However, if the farmland is filled with garbage, there's no crop. The crops won't yield. Similarly, if a mind is, totally polluted, filled with the negative karma, there is simply no way to enjoy the happiness, the joyful experience, the pleasant experience. And also from the spiritual viewpoint, there is no kind of, deeper spiritual experience. No deeper spiritual experience will be felt, will be experienced by the practitioner, because the mind is so filled with the negativities, which truly hinders and obstruct from cultivating and developing the experience and the realizations. Therefore, purification does matter hugely. It is not something, can be, treated as some kind of common practice. That is, it cannot be treated as common practice without engaging purification practice, no matter how much profound practice that one engages in. It takes so long and long and long. It's so struggling, because you have no basis upon which you develop all the qualities, the great qualities the experiential qualities. Therefore, the confession of the negativities, the confession of the negative karma, really is something living, should be made living. Relating to this subject or topic, the great Kadamba master by the name of Lamrim Dorje Singye, he's said in his 8 verses of mind training practice that whenever I associate with others, may I consider as the lowest from the depth of my heart, and may I consider others supreme and sublime. Then he further goes on to say, someone out of jealousy treated me, criticized me, treated me unfairly. Alleged long allegations, charged with wrong allegations, treated me unjustly. Doing all these sort of negative things towards me. May I accept all these things and give my joy and victory to others. And more interestingly and more amazingly, he further added, the line goes on saying, someone to whom I place a lot of trust, to whom I place a lot of hope, I did a great benefits. I brought great benefits to somebody. And unexpectedly, the person whom I place a lot of trust did something which I haven't expected. It's beyond my dream, did something wrong to you, which shattered my mind into pieces. May I consider that person my supreme teacher. So that is the essence of the mind training practice, essence of the mind training practice. Yet we are supposed to engage in such practice, yet we are totally lost. We don't have that inner strength. We don't have that self-confidence, which is based on wisdom, to practice such a marvelous teachings. So the question is, how are we to develop such an infinite inner strength? How are we to develop such a self-confidence to engage in such an advanced, such a profound instruction? So therefore, if we were to indulge or engage in such an advanced practice, such a profound practice, then, what we have to do? In order to develop such an inner strength, infinite inner strength and self-confidence, right now, we don't have that, self-confidence. For example, when we lost something, when we get defeated, we are not going to stay. We want to do something. So the best thing is, developing the inner strength is in order to practice, we need to develop inner strength. In order to develop the inner strength, what we need to do is just to, we talk about, reducing the self-cherishing thoughts and cherishing others. But in order to develop cherishing others, again, what we need to do, we need to think about the benefits of cherishing others, and to reduce your own self-cherishing thought, we need to think about the defects and the shortcomings of the self-cherishing thought. Again, how to reduce the self-cherishing thought, to think about the shortcomings, to think and contemplate on the shortcomings of self-cherishing thought. But we need to think about the defects and the shortcomings, right? How are we going to think about the shortcomings of self-cherishing thought? Again, we need to, now the purification practice matters. Because even sometimes, we wanted to, think about the shortcomings of the, self-cherishing thought, but sometimes somehow, due to, we have no time, or due to, some other reason, we are not able to, get the time to spend on such a practice, to spend on contemplating and thinking about the shortcomings of self-cherishing thoughts and the benefits of cherishing others. You don't have much time, sometimes due to the shortage of the time, or due to, some other reason, right? So even, thinking about the, defects of the, self-cherishing thoughts, we need the purification practice to make sure that we have enough time to devote, to commit it to such practice. The practice of thinking about the defects of the self-cherishing thoughts and the benefits of cherishing others. So once we create, once we do the, enough purification practice, confession practice, then at a certain point of time, good things, the good qualities begin to blossom in your heart. It is from that stage that it is the time to flourish all these good qualities within ourselves. This is one thing. Another thing is, important thing is, in our daily life, sometimes we go, sometimes we go through this problem and that problem. I am charged with false allegations. I'm being treated, unfairly. And I started a good business, but somehow, for some time, it is not going well. People don't like my way of thinking and my way of, attitude, way of thinking, my way of, action. People gossiping about me. Or I'm not feeling good, I'm going through some kind of sickness. If you look into this, the realities, fundamentally, all this arise from where? All these problems, the troubles, the challenges, the struggling, all arises from negative karma. And another important thing is because of we haven't engaged in the purification practice. So these, the negative karma, especially those, experiential negative karma is now ripening. For the practitioner, for someone who is really truly dedicating to this purification practice, confession practice for such a long time, maybe 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, that person, it is very possible to see these problems going through that person, the practitioner. But how is it possible? Because the person is making the purification practice. The person is making the confession practice since long time ago. Still, the person faces the same problem. Like those person who does not engage in purification practice, both are facing the same problem. What makes the difference? We may have this kind of caution. It makes the difference. For us, so long as we are not committed to making purification practice, the problems that I mentioned earlier will continue to come like the ripples of the water. Whereas the practitioner who has been committed to the purification practice since long time ago, the challenges that person faces is totally different. That person, going through the challenges, struggling, it shows that the person is making purification practice. The purification practice is working. Because that person, the practitioner who has been doing purification practice for so long, maybe 4 or 5 years, still we see actually in reality what really happening is the person that created such negative karma may, the impact, the intensity of the negative karma and the duration of the negative karma. The intensity, for example, maybe 100 out of 100, the intensity of the negative karma. And the duration, because of the negative karma, the person has to experience for maybe 100 years. Now, because the person engages in the purification practice, the intensity is reduced to 5%. The duration is reduced to 100 years to maybe 5 minutes. That makes a huge difference. See, so that is the power of making the purification practice. We can create a huge amount of, the negative karma. The intensity is so strong. The duration is such long, but all this can be reduced. The duration can be reduced to just 5 minutes or 10 minutes of painful experience. And the intensity of the pain and suffering is reduced to 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Even if one really, make the true purification practice, even, the person does not have to experience any kind of suffering while alive. Having said that, if we really were to make a true and powerful purification practice, confession practice, how do we go about making such a powerful and effective purification practice? So it is extremely important to understand. Without understanding, how are we supposed to put into practice? Understanding does matter. It is very important to understand. If we really were to, make the purification practice really in progress, really make it effective practice, such a powerful practice. So, to make the purification practice effectively, powerfully, what do we need? Buddha taught the different methods for making purification practice. Buddha taught different kinds of method. You can make the statue, you can make the offering. You can read the sutra. You can hear the Dharma teachings. You can circumambulate the stupa. You can recite a mantra. You can help others. You can meditate. There are different methods that I has taught. But the complete purification practice, in order to make the purification practice complete and full, without missing any. For that, to make the complete purification practice, I'm talking about the complete one, not the half, not 1 or 2 is missing. We are talking about complete. We are talking about the package. So for that, we need the 4 powers. I better say 4 powers. 4 powers is any purification practice, whether you are doing the purification practice of associated with 35 confession Buddha, or whether you are going to engage in Vajrasattva practice, purification practice, or you are doing some kind of, mantra powerful mantra, reciting powerful mantra in any kind of, if your aim is just to make the purification practice, to purify our negative karma and obscurations, for that, I'm saying we need the 4 powers complete, without which we can't expect to purify totally. That is not something that I created or something come out of my mind, all of a sudden. All these 4 powers, the necessity of 4 powers is well taught in all the Buddha's teaching. All the great masters. So, now what are the 4 powers? What are the 4 powers? So the first power, the reason why we do the purification practice. Why? I mean, sometimes we wanted to do some kind of purification practice, maybe with some kind of, or just a wish, we wanted to do some purification practice. Or due to certain reason, we wanted to do the purification practice. But a sincere and genuine urge to do the purification practice. I have to do it at all cost. This kind of motivation, how can we develop this kind of motivation? That is the question, and that matters. Something, a real kind of, the motivation, a pure motivation, a sincere motivation, bring you to this practice, motivate you to engage in purification practice. What really is kind of such a powerful motivation that urges you, that motivates you to do something. If you want to go to buy something, right? So we should have some motivation first. If you want to travel to some other country, we should have some motivation. To accomplish, certain this and that, the aim or goal. With this, you have to, the situation, requires you to travel. Similarly, here, in order to engage in the purification practice, I say effective, powerful purification practice, something really brought you up, motivates you to do this practice. What is that? What really is that motivation? Such a, powerful motivation, such a, driving force motivation, driving force motivation. That driving force motivation is the sense of remorse. The sense of remorse. The sense of remorse over what? The sense of remorse over the negative and wrongdoing that we have committed. This is the kind of motivation or feeling that we need to develop. It's not that you have to develop, otherwise I'm going to punish you. Not in that way. It should be some kind of spontaneous motivation, which is not under the control of power and under the control of somebody's pressure, force, but it should come from deep from your heart. Now the question is the remorse, the sense of remorse. The sense of remorse for having committed the negative, having committed the negative action. Now the question is, again, how do we develop such a remorse? As I said, nobody can force us. Nobody has right to force us. It should come from your heart spontaneously. Voluntarily. So, to develop such a remorse feeling, the remorse of having committed the negative karma, the wrongdoing, these should now, how to develop this feeling, the remorse feeling? To develop the remorse feeling, finally, what you need the sense of fear. Again, that is, I wanted to share that some people mistaken this fear for any fear. In our life, there are many fears which are totally baseless, unnecessary. Sometimes we, unintentionally or intentionally create such fears, which is no need. Why we need this kind of fear? Right now, the fear that I'm talking about is the transformative fear, the valid fear, which really makes you transform your life, which really, not from outside, deep from inside, which really brings you happiness in the long lasting. Temporarily, it brings inner strength. Ultimately, it brings long lasting happiness, a real, genuine happiness. That is really important. So don't mistake this fear for any other, useless fear, which we do not want, because this fear unnecessarily creates a lot of problem. The fear I'm talking about, it brings benefits. It brings inner strength. It brings happiness, joy in the long term, in the long run. Again, how do we develop this such a kind of fear? You meant such kind of fear. Fear of what? What kind of fear now? The fear that I am going to experience suffering if I don't purify the negative karma. The fear that I'm going to experience the pain, the intensity of the suffering, the duration of the suffering. When you think about these lines, when we think about these things, then it moves your, it moves your heart. It moves your heart. This kind of fear moves your heart, and it brings you to a sense of remorse, the sense of remorse for having committed the wrongdoing. And then this brings to another, the power, all the power. With this, whatever spiritual practice you do is such intense, such a, pure, sincere, a real powerful which then makes purify many of the negative karma. Even the karma that we have accumulated eons can be brought to an end, so that we don't go through any kind of suffering, pain and suffering. So therefore, finally, we come to the conclusion that it is the fear of the suffering that I need to develop. Now, how am I going to develop the fear of the suffering? That is the question. How am I going to develop the fear of the suffering? So that's why, that is the very reason why we study Lamrim, why we try to practice Lamrim, the stages of the path to enlightenment. That is the purpose. In the Lamrim, in the stages of the path to enlightenment instruction, what is being taught in these, Lamrims, in the Lamrim text? What are being taught? Now, so far, we hear the Lamrim instruction and Lamrim teachings. Now, what we heard, now, when the situation requires, we need to put into practice what we have heard, what we have listened to. So therefore, in the Lamrim, the first is being taught the preciousness of the life. The preciousness of the kind of birth, human birth, which is complete with 8 lashes and 10 endowments. In the Lamrim teaching, it talks about, such a, high valuable. This kind of birth is something which will not come by for eons and eons. It is so hard to obtain. It is extremely hard to obtain. More difficult than obtaining the wish-pulling gem. More difficult than obtaining the hundreds and thousands of diamonds. Right? And then, we need to think about the preciousness of this life, and the rarity, the high valuable of this precious human life. After that, we now need to think about impermanent of the death, impermanent of the death. After having, meditate, reflect on the impermanence of death, the next come is meditation, meditating on the suffering of the lower limb. Sometimes, when we talk about when we talk about the suffering, people don't want to hear. It's too complicated. People really think about suffering. I have enough suffering. Forget about that. Don't talk about suffering. That's totally, short-sighted. That, I don't know. If we really want transformation in the life, if we really want something, not only in this life after lifetime, we have no choice. I mean, nobody's saying, oh, wait for the suffering, no. What we are saying is transform our suffering into the positive things, into transforming the adversaries into the advantages, into the spiritual path. So this is exactly what we are doing here. We are doing. This is exactly what Lamrim teaching is doing. This is exactly Buddha is what telling us. So I mean, many of my, many of my instructions, maybe it seems, not relevant, but it's all, the method for accomplishing the temporary happiness and long-lasting happiness, especially the long-lasting happiness. Because after all, nobody wants suffering. Everybody wants happiness. If we really want happiness, we need to, pay attention to these things. That is the reality. But that's not the reality. Right? So again, I meditate on the preciousness of the human life. I meditate on the preciousness of the human life. I meditate on the rarity of finding this kind of human life. I think about the impermanence of death. I think about the reflect on the suffering of the lower limbs. But still, I have difficulty moving my heart. I cannot develop any kind of feeling which is long-lasting. I cannot develop such a sincere feeling, such a powerful feeling, effective feeling. So what's going and what really is going? I try to do my best to develop, the preciousness of life. This life is so precious. It's not from, I'm saying from my, lip service. It's not from my mouth. Something, a deep feeling should be developed, should be cultivated, which really, push me in a more better way. For that, in order to cultivate this, kind of, deeper experience, the valuing the preciousness of human life, the rarity in finding such a, special human birth, meditation on impermanent death, which urges me to do something in a better way. Reflection on the suffering of the lower limbs, which again urges me to make the purification practice effective. But I'm not able to develop, in spite of doing all these things, I'm still not able to develop such a sincerity and such a effective and powerful, the natural kind of feeling. What's really wrong? What really is happening? I'm not talking about the reason. There are some reason which I'm not going to talk today. I will apply. I will give. There are some. The instruction. It comes with instructions. There are some instructions which then makes you, see the preciousness of human life, develop the deep, admiration on the meditation of impermanent of death. But the real feeling, the feeling, the fear of the suffering of the lower limb. Again, when we think about suffering of the lower limb, it makes you tears fall down. That is pure tear. That is, that really is something, really powerful, because it is based on the, unique experience. It is based on the unique experience, and it has the sense of acceptance rather than rejection. Right. So if we still are not able to develop these kind of, really, powerful and effective, the feeling, then what we need to do is we need to engage in purification practice. We need to create the merit, number one. Number two is we need to pray, do the supplication, do the praying, do the merit field. Number two is we need to work harder in our spiritual path, in our spiritual journey. We need to work harder a little bit. If you have all these things, then what you think in the beginning would take 10 years will happen in 1 month, maybe in 2 months, maybe in 1 year. It's still not loss. It's a big victory for you, right? So this is the power of, the first one is the power of the remorse, and I explained how to cultivate the power of remorse. Once you have cultivated this power of remorse, such an intense remorse, I will explain. For example, you see, for example, today we create a negative karma. Maybe we, did some wrongdoing today. What happened? What happened the next day? What happened after 10 years? What happened after 1 year? Think. I will give you analogy. Let me give analogy. The snake, we all know snake. When the snake bites your hand, is it good? Oh, I bite my hand is bitten by snake. Oh, now, nice. Nobody's saying this. What happened when the snake bites your hand? The first thing that we are going to do is to wrap around the area where the snake has bitten, right? If we do not wrap around the area, around the bitten area with some cloth or dress, what really happened? The problem of biting by the snake is that the poisonous effect will spread around the whole body. And when it spread around the whole body, what really happens is the pain is unbearable. The intensity of the pain is unbearable. The duration is so long. So that exactly happens when we create a negative karma. For example, only one negative karma. Forget about many things. Even negative karma. The intensity of the negative karma, the particular negative karma, or any negative karma, that it will continue to increase day by day, day by day. At one point, we may kill one insect, say mosquito. After 6 months, after after 1 month later, it is equivalent to killing 1 million mosquitoes. Right? Similarly, like telling lie. We tell one lie after 1 year, it is equivalent to telling 1 million lies. Similarly with gossiping, all that same. Okay, let me turn my light on. Sorry. Yeah. Right. So the negative karma, multiplied by each day 387 something. Right. So that's why the power of the remorse is in the beginning. This should be intense. If it is intense, all the other powers, I will explain later, will be automatically come one after the another. It's just all these other remaining powers spontaneously come. Similarly, if I give another example, there are 3 persons. One person, maybe, all these 3 persons, for example, like got food poisoning, ate some, food, say mushroom, all this. One person, unfortunately, died. The second person got sick. The third person, showing the sign of, symptoms, but not in pain. The third person is in the symptom. Symptoms are now showing. So what happened to the third person? The third person, what he would do? The third person now fears now when are the such an intense and powerful symptoms come. When would this, pain would come? And then the third person thinks, let alone eating the mushroom, even the sight of the mushroom, that person feels disgusted. Because this pain brought him this, feeling, the sense of remorse, the sense of frightening, which is actually good. So this is exactly work in the negative karma. When we see this pain and suffering, then we really, make all the effort to stay away from the negative karma, to stay away from doing negative karma, and engage in the purification practice, compassion practice. Right. So once, this power of remorse, the sense of remorse comes, arise within you, then it has to say, you have to do. You have to take a refuge in the 3 jewel. You have to generate the mind of enlightenment. You have to do this practice. You have to do that practice. Nobody has to say. Everything comes from its own. Because of the skillfulness in practicing, because of the power of the accumulation of the merit and purification practice. Nobody has to say, oh, you do this practice, you do that practice. or will, the motivation of sense of remorse bring you to this engaging in the purification practice in such a powerful way, in an effective way. That is actually we required, we needed. Sometimes once, we have to listen, to this and that, then of course it's very good, marvelous. But there is, sometimes I doubt the sincerity, the purity is there or not. When we do the practice, there should be sincerity and purity. It should come from your heart. It should be the voluntariness, the voluntary, the joyful voluntary, the acceptance, the joyful acceptance. Not under the force, not under the law, under the rule. So once this kind of sense of remorse comes, then the next power, the power is what is called as taking the refuge and generating the mind of enlightenment. When we go for refuge, it's not our mouth. It's all come from inside. It's purity. There's a purity of taking the refuge. There's the sincerity and the purity in generating the mind of enlightenment. That is powerful, refuge. That is a powerful way of doing the refuge and powerful way of generating the mind of enlightenment. It's a kind of spontaneous. There's no fabricated. You're going for refuge is really genuine. The highest quality of taking the refuge, the highest quality of generating the mind of enlightenment. There's no fabrications. It's so spontaneous. It's so joyful. The feelings are so important. The involvement of the feelings. There's feelings, such a powerful feelings, sometimes inexpressible, undescribable feeling will arise. Once these kind of, the purity, the sincerity of the, taking refuge and generating the mind of enlightenment, that really matters. And that is how we can create a tremendous amount of merit and purify greatly the real purification not taking place. The real purification really taking place. If you take the refuge, the remorse, the sense of remorse, what does the sense of remorse do? The sense of remorse do, now in our life, we have so many challenges, we have so many difficulties, the problems here. When we develop this remorse, it will destroy all the imprint. It will destroy all the tendency to go through all this pain and suffering again and again. Not only this sense of remorse also, destroy and deactivate the karma from increasing day by day. So you see how this power, the power of remorse does such a really powerful, function it does. It has the power to purify what? The experiential result. Sometimes we are sick, sometimes, we aim to accomplish things, this thing and that thing. Sometimes people, charge, the false allegation against me, criticism. All these tendencies are destroyed when we develop the power of remorse. Can only be done by power of remorse. When we take the refuge, generate the mind of enlightenment, that is the second power. Now, you see, this destroys the environmental result. Sometimes, when we do the negative karma, as a result, we go through, we are born in the places. For example, in the case of killing, we are born in the places where we are born in a war zone area, for example. You cannot get medication. You cannot get proper medication, proper housing, proper food to eat. So like this power of, the second one is what we call as the power of the basis, That is now generating the mind of enlightenment and going for refuge. It destroys the environmental result. Not only the environmental result, you create such a tremendous amount of merit. And you are making purifying practice deep down, we call tissue cleaning, cleaning from the root, not from the surface. When we develop such a feeling, powerful feeling, then when we develop the generation mind of enlightenment, going for it is so pure, is so sincere. Then the next come is now the actual practice, not the actual, the power. That is the power of antidote, the power of antidote. The power of antidote. When we talk about the power of antidote, this power of antidote, now you see, there are 6 power of antidote, although there are many, but the importance, the important 6 ones are reading the sutra, Buddha's teaching, reciting the mantras, recitation of the mantra, right? And then reciting the names of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, holy beings. And then making offerings, making statues, including tsaza and all these things. So these six, you can, make the statues, or you can read the, Dharma text, or you can, study, or you can recite the mantras. Whatever you do this, need to be motivated by the sense of the first fear, the sense of the fear, the sense of the remorse. Should do with some kind of feeling, not kind of some like, or some kind of obligation to do, it's my, or maybe it had me to purify, I'm not sure. Or yeah, somebody is doing, I'm doing, somebody asked me to do, I have to do. Not this way. Don't do this. Yeah, we don't, we all, of course, including myself, do with the purity, sincerity. Then it gives you a real purification taking place, the real purification. Right? Now, for example, like, mantra recitation, we are doing the Vajrasattva and also the, 35 confession, all these complete with the 4 powers. This is now the third antidote. The power of antidote. Now, the fourth one is the power of the promise. The power of the promise. Now, this is important. The power of the promise means, in the beginning, in order to make the power of promise, that means the power, we may, create, commit some negative actions, may say gossip or, telling lie. For that, I am not going to do that. I am not going to do that. Again, you make a resolve, you make a promise. Because if I do, I will go through the painful experience, which I do not want. So you see, so for the, power of the promise, sometimes we, when we make the power of the promise, we create some negative promises within our lifetime. Then we say, even at the very course of my life, I'm not going to do that. All the 10 non-virtuous actions, all the wrongdoings, negative actions. Now we are confessing the negative actions in the presence of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in front of you. So then, even at the course of my life, sometimes we better don't do that way, So the best thing is, so, of course, we, sometimes, we are compelled, or, at one point of or other point of time, we commit a negative action. So then it seems like we are, deceiving these enlightened beings. We're, deceiving these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So the best way to make the promise is those negative actions, negative karma or wrongdoings that I am able to refrain from, that I'm going to refrain from. You make the promise. Those that you are capable of, negative actions that you are able to, stop, that you are able to stop, it's better that we make a promise for this. Those that is pretty difficult, hard for us to refrain from, because sometimes, we get habituated, say, like, for example, in the case of the, some negative actions, for example, gossiping or drinking or, smoking, these things. In the beginning, it's difficult. So then what the best thing that we need to do is, say, gossiping or whatever. How long you can do this? Can you do one day? Make the promise for one day. Or if you have confidence that you are able to keep this for 1 week, then do for 1 week. Then again, you increase. Or I will refrain from gossiping or whatever for 2 weeks, then 3 weeks, then 1 month. In this way, this is how we can do. In this way, we are also not deceiving the enlightened beings. This is somewhat practical, also very beneficial. And then those, negative actions which you find is almost impossible, very difficult for you to refrain from, to restrain from. You are not able to, stop. It's because you are habituated with these things. You are not able to, stop right away. In few months, it's almost impossible for you to refrain from. So for those very hard is we make the prayer. We do the prayer that may I be able to do sooner or later. In this way, it's really wonderful, practical, and to the point. So therefore, right, now we make this kind of beautiful practice, complete with 4 powers, the power of the remorse, the power of the basis, the power of the antidote, the power of the promise or resolution. We are making the complete purification. It's such a deep feeling is being involved, such a strong feelings involved. That really makes right here. Say, for example, right, the last one, the power promise. When we do, the power of the promise that for 1 week, or for 1 month, I am not going to engage, I'm not going to commit this particular negative action, or wrongdoing. When we develop a strong feeling at that point, right, most probably you develop some kind of vow in your mind, which really is powerful, pure, that really has deep meaning. Then at the actual point, when we develop such a, the vow, such a vow or such kind of, the positive thought, strong sense of, the promise that I am not going to engage. I am not going to engage in such action, negative actions. At that point, what really happened is this thought leaves the imprint deep in your heart, and afterwards you receive the blessing. With this blessing, the imprints are transformed into the pure kind of feeling, which then makes you refrain for a longer and longer period of time. At one point of time, you are able to refrain totally. So this is, for example, when you develop the bodhicitta, we cannot develop the spontaneous and the naked, bodhicitta right now, but we can develop the fabricated bodhicitta, right? When we develop the fabricated bodhicitta, it is so pure. This motivation, although not the actual bodhicitta, but it's still similar to bodhicitta, this leaves the imprint. That's the purity. When other people make offering to you, it's worthwhile. It's something powerful. And this leaves the imprint. And as you receive the blessing, this imprint transforms into the bodhicitta. But again, through training. So these are for the short information, what I call information or instruction, for us to engage in the purification practice with the complete powers. If one power is missing, sorry. Now, how far we can make the purification practice? How far? What are the signs of having made the purification practice? Or purification practice is working in the progressing. you know. So it depends, you know, how far we make the perfect practice. It depends on the person, and also depends on the intensity of the 4 powers, and for how long that person engaged in the purification practice. All depends on this. How sooner or longer that person purified. It all depends on these factors. And then, as a sign, and you really made the purification practice, then sometimes, you know, that's why I say, you know, sometimes, you know, those practitioner who does a lot of purification practice, sometimes they have more sickness, you know. It is not a sign. It's a progression. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of obstacle. It's a progression. That person who is going to take rebirth in the lower limb for 1 eon is reduced to 1 day. Pain and suffering even can be reduced to just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just half a day. Very possible, right? So the sign are for having made the periphery arts. Sometimes, you know, practitioner go through, you know, some mild headache for a short period of time, or, you know, in the dream when you see the musical instruments, Dharma musical instruments, you are hearing the Dharma musical instruments, the conch. You are, you know, struggling to climb on the hills, the mountains. You see the sun and moon at the same time. You see the milk coming down from the trees. You see meeting with the lamas, the temples, the monasteries. These are the indication that you are in some way making perfection practice. It's walking. Again, it cannot be relied 100%. No, it cannot be relied 100%. Because even sometimes, you know, strange dreams can happen. We divide the dream into 4 sections. So which I'm not going to talk about. The dreams. The dream at the dawn time is pretty reliable. There are some dreams even, you know, talks about, you know, pre-imminent death and also, you know, taking birth in the lower limb. But let's forget. I'm not going to talk about that. So, but the definitive, the convincing indication of having made perfection is when you develop the faith in the law of karma, the faith in the one's guru, the 3 jewels, the faith in the teaching of emptiness, the dependent origination. When one's delusions, the negative emotions, destructive emotions are dramatically reduced, it is the 100% sign that your purification is 100% at work. There is no doubt. There's no question about that. No, I think the time has come. Okay, sorry, yeah, the time has come. Sorry, with this, I stop here the purification practice, confession practice, right? So one thing, you know, in the 35 confession, you know, there are 35 Buddhas, you know, each of the Buddhas has, the power, reciting the name has the power to purify some negative karma over 1,000 years. I think the jewel light purify the negative karma accumulated over 25,000 eons. Imagine 1 eon. I'm talking about 25,000 eons that we have created negative karma can be purified by reciting the name of this Buddha. So each of these 35 confession has their function to purify. Because why? It's because they have during the time they make the stainless prayer, and because of this these names carry the blessings to purify in such a way. So I think we better stop here. Yeah, this time is. Any question? If you have no question, then we better do the dedication prayer. Any question? Okay, it looked like no question, particular question. So then, yeah, we go through the dedication, I think, here. Okay, then. Om Jeva Deye Yoda Lama Sanje Tujone Andova Jeyama Leba Te Sala Beba Chanjo Senjo Rinpo Che Amaya Bana Yeyo Shin Gewa Nyamba Mebaya Kone Kono Pewa Resha Yanda Tava Rinpo Che Amaya Bana Yeyo Che Gewa Nyamba Mebaya Kone Kono Pewa Resha Tongwa Tanya Taba Tama Jamba Tanya Repayi Tanya Sanje Tamje Ke Nena Junya Shiyo Sasu Jangwa Chambo Da Namba Shindo Tabaya Simje Tado Mebaya Nama Yize Shinya Shang Jize Namba Nebata Andowa Tese Nejoba Tese Dane Nejone Dure Dune Sewa Shang Tene Jize Lama Duji Ma Jon Dure De Dune Ma Le Tanda Da Nebata Da Ye De Ge Shen La Tangwa Yi Do Yue Den Da Den Baru Xin Ye Yame Pawe Je La Den Ba Da Kundo Sambo Te Ya Te Xin De Te Da Gun Gen Je Sun Da Ro Ji Je Wa De Da Tam Je Ra To Tu Sun She Ye Wa Tam Je Ge Ngo Wa Kang Na Cho Dong Ma Pa De Da Ye Je Ge Za Wa De Ye Ge Wa Sambo Je Je Ra To Wa Ki Yawa Kanto Shabe Rando Shangwa Tse Bame Tse Ngudu Tse Yanda Molazo Yanda Leden Lazo Talbe Shugi She Shabe Doji Ngu Tenpa Si Tade Yanda Dawe Ma Ye De Chansen Laze Chansen Shushu Rinchen Lazo Magabe Do Duwa Laze Shi Bare Ombar Do Shinye Rewa Tenpo Taden Sho O te te ye te rin lo pe me tse sa san de ye o lo se so pe pe nye ke go ga ye xin ye nu ye jo zhen ne zhen de ye na ye de da chi shu Nju se je ye ve je la da den de lo me be den ba da ge ha sun da be tu da ge men be tin jin da la ru ba sho me me je be de jin je re se ki me ken be wang bu ja be ya kan je ge be zo ye zong ga ba lo sa cha be ya ba so ye okay okay thank you everyone.
Uh, thank you Ben, thank you everyone, thank you chị Nga. Cảm ơn mọi người đã vào nghe Pháp ngày hôm nay. À, hẹn gặp lại vào tuần tới.
Okay, thank you everyone. Have a good day, good Dharma day.
Cảm ơn thầy.
Dạ, bài giảng hôm nay sẽ được thu lại và sẽ được phát trên kênh YouTube của đạo tràng Madhya. Thì khoảng 2-3 ngày nữa thì mà sau khi đã edit xong thì video sẽ được post lên.